Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday. And what does that mean? It means it is Go Beyond. So, welcome to another episode of Go Beyond. My name is Alyssa Robinson. I am the digital strategist here at Trietsch, and I am here with our senior pastor, Reverend Daniel Humbert. And we come together 3 times a week to dive deeper into the message from Sunday. So, this past Sunday, Doug preached on Acts chapter 3 through 6. So I read through it. I put together a list of questions about the historical context, challenging the ideas behind it. Normally, what I do on a Wednesday is I'm challenging the ideas behind the scripture. But one of the things that Doug was talking about on Sunday that really struck me is continuing to be a servant during times of change and the ways that we are differ in how we react to change. Some people run towards it and are excited about it and love it and want to change all the time. Some people run away from it. Some people just have no idea what to do. So the majority of my questions for Daniel today are more personal and are less focused on the scripture that we read through this week and more focused on, Daniel, how do you handle change? So I'm really excited about that. And just remember that you can catch all previous episodes of Go Beyond at tmumc.org/go beyond. So Daniel, you ready for this?
Yeah, and I just remind folks too, if they're willing and able to ask questions, through Facebook, that'd be great. And this might be one of those days that they could do that in terms of personal stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the very first question I have to you is just a very basic understanding of what is your attitude towards change?
I don't like it. Yeah.
All right, next question.
yeah. No, I am almost sort of, I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but I'm almost bipolar as it goes to with regard to how I deal with change. I consider myself a change agent, and so I thrive on change in some ways, and in other ways, I really hate change. And I was trying to think through what impacts me in terms of the negative effects of change. And I just think the most recent example I can think of is just either websites or portals that change their formats, change their structure, change, their facing. And I just think, dadgummit, I just got used to what you had, or I just got used to the way you were doing things, or I hate this stuff, right? So I think I'm like many people that when change impacts me and I have sort of no control over it, I don't care for it at all. But if I'm helping to impact change and helping to make what I hope is help make things better, then obviously I'm like all gung-ho for it and all ready for it, right? And so literally I've been a change agent in every church that I've served, and I hope that it's been for the positive, but it often causes consternation and often causes people to get, displeased with either what I'm trying to lead or what we're trying to do together. And so I'm well aware that many people struggle with change because it's just hard. It's very hard.
Well, and I'm in the exact opposite camp. So maybe some people who are tuning in can let us know which side of the coin that you're on. You love change or you hate change, or somewhere in the middle, because I'm the kind of person that nothing is sacred. Blow it all up. If it's not working, try something new. Like, you don't have to cling to anything. And so the hardest thing for me to cope with and some of the toughest words for me to hear are, but we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
And it just destroys me to hear that.
Well, then that's why you probably love the book of Acts, right? Because it literally blew up how the church did business and how faith came to be and how faith changed and how we related to other people. And so that's the beauty of the book of Acts, is virtually every single chapter is acknowledging that change is taking shape and it's all going to be positive. Though my hunch is, even for you, Alyssa, when you have to deal with change, even for those of us who love it or thrive on it, there's an initial, oh, I don't know, or I'm not sure, I don't understand. There's always just sort of an initial, oh, okay. There are a few people that are just like, cool, it's great and gung-ho 100% of the time. But it is what I love about the book of Acts, is virtually every chapter is dealing in change and how it impacts us.
And that was actually the title of Doug's sermon, was Growing Pains. And so whether you love change or hate change, participating in it, there are going to be growing pains, and there's going to be challenges, and there's going to be things that rub you the wrong way. So what I want to know is, what is the biggest unexpected change that you have faced thus far in your short time on this earth? And how did you react to it?
Well, gosh, what a gracious way to say that. Short time on this earth.
This
Yeah,
would be
so-
one of the few times that I say a nice thing to you during Go Beyond.
Yeah. Well, my hunch is I'm facing the same change everybody else is in terms of a large impact change. And that is 14 weeks ago, we closed the building of a church for in-room worship. And in 30 years of doing ministry as an ordained clergy, and golly, almost 35 years of doing ministry as a layperson and clergy, never had that happen, ever. And initially it was, okay, we'll do this for a few weeks, and then it clearly was going to be, oh, this might be a month or two, and now we're stepping into the 4th month, and that's radical. I mean, it just really is. And fortunately, both the book of Acts and our faith in Jesus is about change. I mean, I think we'd be hard pressed to say that if I'm a follower of Jesus, I don't understand change, because you have to understand that the way in which Jesus came into the world, the way in which he exited the world, and the way in which he re-entered the world, that's all about change. I mean, literally everything from birth to life to death to resurrection, it's all about change. And so that's the good news of our faith, is we're already prepared for change. We already understand how we can deal with change. You can't go from death to life without acknowledging that's change, and it's radical and radically good. But yeah, so dealing with COVID has been the hardest change I've ever dealt with, and it's as equally stimulating and challenging emotionally, psychologically, physically, and certainly spiritually. It has impacts on all levels. On the lighter end of it, we talk about the COVID-19, and the 19 stands for the 19 pounds you're going to gain, having, just lived in your house, to the emotional and spiritual impacts that it has on us in terms of how we relate to people or not, and how we understand our relationship with God or not, and clearly how we worship, right? I mean, we have radically shifted how we worship. There's no question we are still worshiping, but we have radically changed how we worship God. And I don't think it's bad. It's just different. And in some ways it's much, much better. And in other ways it feels really different. And that's a part of change. So it's been hard. I don't disown that at all. It's had a great impact on my life, my ministry, my relationships, most of which have actually been positive, but some of which are, just kind of hard. It's kind of hard to deal with.
Well, and Dana asks a question on Facebook that's really relevant to the answer that you just gave, because I think a lot of us have wrestled with it during this time of COVID, but also previous to this. She asked, which is your greatest fear between these two, loss of control or being taken advantage of?
Well, is that a question directed to me, you mean?
I'm assuming it's directed to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows my answer, loss of control.
Yeah. I see, for me, it's the latter. I don't mind giving up control. Clearly not all control, but I don't mind giving up control. But I hate being taken advantage of, because I feel like, and I think some of this has to do with my oneness versus your eightness and control, is for my oneness, I want to know what's right. And if you've sort of taken advantage of that by taking advantage of me, then that's an injustice to me. And it feels very much like that. And just rightness and wrongness, right? So if you have, quote unquote, wronged me by taking advantage of me, I feel like an idiot. I feel like like somehow I've let this happen. So yeah, I think for me, it's more the latter.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that these are connected. I definitely have a fear of betrayal, but being taken advantage of, there's a piece of me that has to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And I draw such hard boundaries with people to my own detriment at times, that I think it's a lot harder for me to be taken advantage of than for me to feel a loss of control.
Yeah. One of the things that I don't know where or how I learned it, but somewhere sort of in um, my late 20s or so, and I can't tell you a specific example or reason, I began to make a real clear distinction between those things that I clearly can have control over and I can have impact on and I can make a difference in, and those things that I can't. And that distinction helped me to know, not to know, or how to process my anger, for instance. If I can have impact and control over something and it's going bad or wrong, I get really angry about it because I know I can control it or have impact on it. But if I know, golly, it's beyond me, it's outside of my purview, it's not a part of my control issue, then I just let it go because I can't do anything. And that's helped me a lot. And golly, COVID's one of those deals. I had virtually, zero control over how it comes into the world and how it has impact. I know what I can do about it. I know how I can help control my, part of that. And so I don't get overwhelmed by it, but it does definitely change our lives and change how we function.
Well, and I want to go to the next question about, we're talking about change, but we've also in Acts, in the entire book of Acts so far, but it kind of gives us a little bit more detail in Acts 3-6. It talks a lot about communal living and how they're planning to do that. And it's kind of like what you were talking about earlier with like this blue sky approach to church. We can make it whatever we want it to be. How are we going to make this work? How are we going to divvy out responsibilities to people? And so the idea behind communal living is that to be a part of this community, it is an expectation, almost beyond an expectation, a requirement that you are contributing with your resources, with your time, with your prayers. And so this community was very strict about it. And on Monday, he even mentioned, a guy that and his wife who didn't bring their gifts to the table and were deceptive about it, were struck down dead. So it's a little extreme. We're not going to do that. But I'm just curious. It got me thinking with the size of our church and the impact that we have on the community, what is the capability for change out of Trietsch? If we fully committed to this communal living, if we fully committed to the idea of tithing and stepping up to serve, what is our potential impact?
Ooh, doggy, you're going to get me going on tithing. Way to go.
Sorry,
Listen,
everybody.
yeah, yeah. Well, so you bring tithing in, I assume, just because it's, it really is about community. And because tithing, unbeknownst to most people, really means more than just money. It means my time and it means my talents. And so just on a simplistic level, if it means my time, golly, so there's 168 hours in a week. A tithe of that is 16 hours, almost 17 hours. What do I do with that 16 or 17 hours that honors God, that serves others, that shares good news, that commits to God's cause, right? That's time. Doesn't cost $1, doesn't cost a dime. It's my time, but it's a tithe of my time. Same way with my talents. If I happen to be just pick certain things, if I'm a carpenter or if I'm a plumber or if I'm a doctor or if I'm a lawyer, whatever, if I've got skills, I ought to be sharing those for God's kingdom. I ought to be sharing those to build God's world. And golly, if we're in community, then I want to do that for and with the community. And man, that could have huge impact if we were doing that. And then as it regards money, I mean, I use this analogy in our new member class when I talk about the tithe and dollars. What we know for our general area by the census data is that the median household income in the immediate area is $117,000 a year. Well, what that means is half the people make more and half the people make less, but that's the median. And there are roughly 1,000 households in Trietsch. So 1,000 households tithing on the median household income of 117, that's $11,700 per home. Times 1,000, that's $11,700,000 a year. Our budget is less than a fourth of that. Imagine what we could do to serve the community with healthcare, with food, with home value, with health, education, with all kinds of things. What could we do? Golly, we could create housing for people. We could offer health care, right? I mean, there's just an amazing amount we could do if we pooled our resources for God's greater glory. And that is what chapter 6 was all about, was the way in which we pooled our resources, used our gifts, and then served the community. And it literally changed the world that they were living in. And that's the kind of impact we could have. And it's really quite profound. I can't even, it's hard to wrap my mind around the fact that we have the potential at Trietsch, just one church, for just shy of $12 million every single year to be in mission and ministry. That's mind-boggling, really.
It is. So what is your vision for Trietsch to become more communal? Are we striving to become more communal like the original church? Is that something that we should be trying to achieve? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, it looks different really than it did then, but it's still very much a part of what we need to be doing. I do not anticipate that we will be cohabitating communally as chapters 2 and 4 describe, but I do believe that the focuses that we have tie into community with things like our life groups that call us to, weekly gather together and share our life with God and what that means. What does it look like? And everything as simple as how it impacts my prayer life to how it impacts how I serve other people. And so life groups become a huge tangible way for that communal living. And then how we live out service, whether it's Kids Eat Free or our Project Transformation or even Mad Camp, where we are stepping into community and being among folks and being with people to help them know that God loves them. And in some cases, it's feeding them. In other times, it's teaching them. In other cases, it's reading with them. It's stepping into their world and uniting us together. And that's what I've always cherished about those particular programs. Now, those will look different this year, obviously, because of COVID, but we're still participating in it. We're still feeding people through Kids Eat Free, and we're still providing care through Project Transformation, and we're still offering lessons and even relationships through Mad Camp that's just going to be very different through Wesley Rankin Center. So those are ways for us to call ourselves into community that don't necessarily call us into cohabitating together, but still relying on one another and living together in that sense.
So, and that's about all the time we have, but I do want to emphasize that, Doug's message was all about continuing to be a servant in times of change. And so if you are looking for ways to serve others, go to tmumc.org/summer missions. We have no contact serving opportunities for you. And depending on what your gift is, maybe you're able to give your time, maybe you're able to donate and give money, maybe you have a special skill set that you can offer up. But we have a lot of mission opportunities available for you to be able to continue to serve during this time of change, because God's work doesn't stop. So thank you so much for tuning in today to Go Beyond. And remember, you can catch all previous episodes at tmumc.org/go beyond. And we will see you on Friday at 12:30 as we dive into a spiritual practice together. And normally Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm pushing Daniel and challenging him and asking him questions. And then on Friday is the day where he gets to push me a little bit and teach me new things. So I hope that you'll join us and have a great week.